The Kansas City Chiefs just wrapped up day number 4 of training camp, and guys, we've got some things to talk about. There are some lows in this video, but I promise we will end this video on a high note. There are a collection of notes stripped from Twitter that we are going to go over today, and just a reminder that this is always just about the time of the year when players start dropping like flies with one thing or another. Not meaning to be crass by mentioning that, just saying Justin Watson went down today, and we'll get into that a little bit later, and it looks like it might be nasty, but it might not. It reminds me a lot of the Brian Cook injury, but this, I don't have any word on Justin Watson's future availability at this point. Injuries happen. Injuries happen in football. Injuries happen at this point in the season in football all the time. Speaking of that, we're going to start with a note from Adam Teicher. Xavier Worthy is missing from practice today for the third straight day. I tried not to make a big deal of this. If a guy is sick, a guy is sick. If a guy is injured, a guy is injured. The guy has been both injured and sick. Not great, especially after the exchange earlier where Mahomes was saying, look, there's no making this time up. You have to be ready week 1. And this is the prep time for week 1. You do not just all of a sudden jump into third gear, right? You have to have this type of ramp up, and he's had 1 day of practice so far this preseason. I'm not willing to say that it's anything bad. I'm not willing to say the Chiefs are lying and covering up the hamstring being worse than we saw. I heard Nick Wright talk a little bit about apparently some woman on NFL Network or somewhere had done a study about these sort of wonder athletes that end up breaking the 40-yard dash records from the combine and etc., that they end up swelling up and having problems with soft tissues because they are not training pliability, they are training straight line speed. They are not training jumping off of one foot and landing on the other. They are training vertical leap. They are not training diving for a ball. They are training broad jump. And your body gets your body will sort of tighten up in other places because they do not have to use those joints in those ways. And because you are not training football, you end up being injured when you do football stuff. And it's an interesting idea. It is something that if you apply it to people from the past, David Boston, the old wide receiver, definitely seemed like a guy who was going to have training problems. Also a guy who probably, maybe, allegedly, definitely, almost certainly had problems with other substances that might enhance one's abilities on the football field. The guy used to appear in a magazine called Muscle Mag. I don't know if anybody remembers Muscle Mag, but he used to be in there all the time, which is wild for a wide receiver. This guy was bigger than DK Metcalf. Anyway, David Boston often had ankle injuries, things like that. Was not training for football, was training for aesthetics, it seems, was training for strength and speed as opposed to football maneuverability. So that kind of, I guess, makes sense in that sense. Hopefully, this is not a sign of things to come for one Xavier Worthy. I'm going to be putting out a video sometime this week because it does make me think that the Kansas City Chiefs are likely to carry an inordinate amount of wide receivers into the season again. Why? Well, Xavier Worthy has not proven to be very durable so far. Hollywood Brown has been injured time and again in the past few seasons. Justin Watson is now injured. Kadarius Toney, it strikes me that his first season in Kansas City, didn't he miss some time with injury, etc.? Mecole Hardman had some problems during a season, but I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to carry an inordinate amount of wide receivers. Justin Ross, by the way, the injury issue there. Anyway, moving on, the next thing that I thought would be worth talking about. So, and Justin Watson had an ankle injury during a crossing route. It looked to me a lot like the Brian Cook injury from last season. I have heard nothing on the extent of that injury to this point, but Adam Teicher tweeted out, if Watson is out for an extended period, NIKKO REMIGIO could well be one to benefit. He had a busy day after Watson's exit, catching several passes from Mahomes, including an intermediate throw from Mahomes. And then I wanted to throw out there, Pete had tweeted that Justin Watson ended up leaving practice on the front of a cart. Never a good sign, though he did leave the field on his own power. Or did he leave the tent on his own power? At some point, he was walking by himself. Now, that can happen until you take that shoe off. So it might be possible that they got him in that tent and said, look, this isn't good. And we don't have to take the shoe off to know that. So he walked around, whatever, and then ended up, on the front end of that cart. But if Watson is out for an extended period, NIKKO REMIGIO could be a replacement. Again, I do believe the Chiefs will be keeping an inordinate amount of wide receivers. I do think that NIKKO REMIGIO is going to be on the team this year. We have a quote later on from a coach that's how we'll end this video. But there are videos on Twitter /X of a couple of those receptions, the one from Mahomes, at least one from Mahomes. It's a pretty play. It is a pretty play. If I'm not remembering incorrectly, Patrick Mahomes has to break contain. He wheels out and just kind of floats one towards the sideline. NIKKO REMIGIO is running a route and adjusts on the fly towards the sideline to catch the pass, makes a diving catch. Guys, that is what this offense needs. If this offense had that guy, the sellout guy, the guy who will sell out for the play, the guy who will dive for the catch, the guy who will just get open, if besides Travis Kelce, if they had that guy last year, they would have won the Super Bowl. Okay, yeah, they won the Super Bowl, but it would have been a lot easier. It would have been more fun to watch along the way. Maybe there would have been less strife among the fan base during the regular season. Now we have Pete/Sweeney. Looking like Wanya Morris will rotate with Kingsley Suamataia. It's in my head, I'm saying it correctly, guys. I apologize. Wanya Morris will rotate with Kingsley at first team left tackle today. 5th round rookie Hunter Nourzad appears to be getting an opportunity at left guard with Joe Thuney still out. I do not remember if I pulled. There was another tweet talking about Lucas Niang. Wow, I almost blanked on his name. There was another tweet talking about Lucas Niang getting reps at right tackle. I think what might be happening with Lucas Niang right now is they are kicking him around kicking him around the offensive line in order to see what it is that they have with him. He spent a lot of time injured in past seasons, and last year he was basically just inactive. It might be that they are attempting to see what they have in Lucas Niang in order to keep him, to see if he is worth keeping. It is possible they are moving Lucas Niang about in order to see if he has any marketability. For example, if he showed promise at left guard, maybe you keep him at left guard. I don't see him being a left guard, but if you can shine it up and you can put it on tape, then man, maybe you've got some trade value with him. I do believe that he is a player that could get moved. It's not going to be for a king's ransom. You're looking at a 7th round pick. You are looking at a swap of 7th round picks, but Bret Veach does a lot of good work in the 7th round. As far as this tweet is concerned, Wanye Morris, again, like yesterday, I had mentioned a little bit about not making a big deal that Wanye Morris had taken all of the first team snaps with the offense. It's not a big deal at this point. If it keeps happening, you can read into it. But it looks like they were back to that rotation today. Do not be surprised if in a couple days, Kingsley Suamataia is running exclusively with the first team. So they're going to get this figured out. I believe 100% wholeheartedly that between Kingsley, Wanye, and Jawan, they have 2 starting offensive tackles. I fully believe that. There's nothing anyone can say to convince me otherwise. I've obviously we haven't seen Kingsley in the NFL. I've seen Wanye on the field in the NFL. I have seen his peak. I have seen his valleys, at least thus far. And you have to believe, in my opinion, you have to believe that the peaks that we've seen during his rookie season are not close to the peaks that he is as a player, not close to the highest he will perform as a player. But those valleys are almost definitely as deep as the valleys get. Why? He had no experience in the NFL. And as the NFL does, they will take the tape and tear you apart. So they were doing everything in their power during the time that Wanye Morris was on the field to exploit his weaknesses because they knew he had them, and that's why we saw him look rougher and rougher as his starting opportunities went on. With that being said, the peak of Wanye Morris while he was on the field last year, which I believe is closer to the real player that he is than those valleys, was definitely good enough to start at left tackle. 5th round rookie Hunter Nourzad appears to be getting an opportunity with left guard Joe Thuney still out. I am curious on the timeline for Joe Thuney. I did not think that he would still be all this injured in the fact that he has not stepped foot on a football field in pads. I think he has had his helmet off the whole time. With the fact that the team was saying he might be ready for the Super Bowl, I think we were all led to believe that this was not a great big deal pectoral strain. Here we are at the end of July, less than 2 weeks, right? Less than 2 weeks from the first preseason game. Joe Thuney is not going to play in that game. I guarantee you Joe Thuney does not play in that game. You've got 3. At that point, you start eating into the regular season. Will the Chiefs have to have a Hunter Nourzad of the world ready to go for week 1? That is an interesting question, in my opinion. Pete carries on by saying, top team cornerbacks McDuffie, Johnson, and Connor inside. Second team cornerbacks Joseph, Williams, and Nick Jones. So this is an interesting group of players. I want to know very badly where Jalen Watson fits into this whole thing. But you're looking at 6 players right now that are NFL players. Now, not the headline here, obviously, is that Najee Johnson is rolling with that top team cornerback group for now. Now, again, this is training camp. They are going to look at different players in different spots, rotate them in with the ones because, like we said last year, this is exactly what happened with Najee Johnson last year. This is exactly when it started happening with Najee Johnson last year. And this was, it's wild because I remember making this point last year with Najee Johnson as the culprit. If a player starts playing with the ones, what it means that they're doing is seeing how that player can fill in for an injury. If Najee Johnson was stuck with the third teamers, which is how he began training camp last year. If he is stuck with the third teamers and Patrick Mahomes is just lighting the third teamers up in camp, you don't know how good all of them are. You don't know how good Najee Johnson is in that situation. But if you put him on the first team with McDuffie on one side and Connor in the slot, all of a sudden you know McDuffie, you know Chamari Connor, you know how well those players are performing. So when you throw Najee Johnson in that mix, you get a truer sense, a truer picture of who it is that Najee Johnson is. Carrying on, I did get this note in here. I talked about it earlier like an idiot. A day after work at left guard, Lucas Niang is rotating in with the top team at right tackle. I do not believe that Lucas Niang is a threat to start at either of the tackle positions for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, 2 of the first 3 days of these videos, I had to open up by saying I was wrong. I was an idiot. But I do not believe that Lucas Niang is a threat to start anywhere along the line for the Kansas City Chiefs, let alone at the tackle position. I think Jawan Taylor, Kingsley Suamataia, and Wanya Morris are going to be that rotation so long as all of them stay healthy. The question is, do the Chiefs feel comfortable enough about the tackles after those 3 that they think they can trade Lucas Niang for value later? Because in case of an injury, maybe you're fine. In case of 2 injuries, that becomes a little rougher without Lucas Niang in the picture. So the Lucas Niang situation is getting interesting in my opinion. And then we get this. For the second straight day, Deneric Prince enters the 11-on-11 run period after Isaiah Pacheco. Does this mean that Deneric Prince is the number 2 running back for the Kansas City Chiefs? Absolutely not. It does not mean that. But I think it does. So the reason it does not mean that is because despite the fact that he is entering the 11-on-11 immediately after Isaiah Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire does not need those reps. So if you were figuring anything out about anyone, it would be, in this situation, Deneric Prince. I still have faith in Deneric Prince. I still think Deneric Prince is going to end up being the second best running back on the roster right now. I think there is a chance that... so look, Deneric Prince not terribly productive during his college career. Good. It was a good college career, not a record-setting college career. Isaiah Pacheco was not good in college. Isaiah Pacheco was drafted essentially because of the athlete that he is. That's how Isaiah Pacheco ended up falling to the 7th round, that he did not have production in college. So I don't know how much you can tear away from their college performances to sort of project what they're going to be in the NFL, at least as far as the actual stats are concerned. That said, Deneric Prince, he's big. He's a big guy. He's fast. Speed's important in football. He showed last preseason that he can catch. It's a very interesting trait for a running back. All of those things are the athlete that a running back has to be, because they are. And so he and Isaiah Pacheco are basically the antithesis of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has 0 of the tools that you need in a running back. 0 of the tools. He's not big, he's not fast, he's not strong, doesn't weigh a whole lot, but he was ultra productive at the college level in the biggest conference in the land, the SEC. So that's what got him drafted in the 1st round. Both of these running backs, Deneric Prince and Isaiah Pacheco, share the fact that they are better athletes than they had been football players at the college level. I think it is possible Deneric Prince shows enough that Clyde Edwards-Helaire falls to the 3rd running back position. I really, really do. And I think that it's in games that this will be proven out, not in practice. Matt McMullen tweets out rookie DJ Miller with a leaping interception down the sideline during 11-on-11. Great play. DJ Miller, now he's from O'Fallon, Missouri. The Kansas City Chiefs seem to like picking up local players once in a while if they can get their hands on them. 5'10", 185 pounds. Here's the thing. DJ Miller is sort of a tantalizing athlete. It's difficult to find tape on him. It's difficult to find numbers for him, 40-yard dash, etc. It is difficult to find all of these things for DJ Miller. So, in the event that he becomes an NFL player, and the more I see of DJ Miller, the more I think he might be. The more, out of Kent State, the more I think he's not a starter. He's not a number one corner. He's not a number two corner. I think DJ Miller, however, would probably make 15 teams in the NFL. I'm not saying he'd be a starter. I don't think he'd be a practice squad guy. If you're keeping 5 corners, almost every team has a DJ Miller, sort of a little plucky guy who has, I don't even know how to explain his athleticism. There's something about DJ Miller that you look at him, and so, okay, here. So he played at Kent State, and not a big school, right? Not a very successful school, not playing huge competition. Do you remember in high school how there was that one guy, not the big bully guy, but there was one guy who just had a weird type of athletic, like if you were going to throw a football up to a group of players, you're like, that's the guy that comes down with it. Don't know why, don't know how, not the greatest football player, but I think he comes down with it. That's DJ Miller. That's how DJ Miller looked on the field at Kent State. And I think he's an NFL talent. I think he's the type of guy who ends up grinding it out and becoming an NFL talent. He might end up on the Chiefs practice squad this season. He might be another Khalef Halassi situation where he does pop in the preseason, he does flash in the preseason, and somebody wants him instead of letting you pass him through waivers. So I think that is something to watch with DJ Miller. Trent McDuffie with an interception during 11-on-11 came out of nowhere to jump the route over the middle. The reason I put this in here is that we have seen a lot from Trent McDuffie this preseason, and I believe he is attempting to step up in the absence of L'Jarius Sneed and really claim ownership over the Chiefs' cornerback position. Really say, look, I'm the leader in this room. You can count on me. Now, Rashee Rice in particular has gotten the better of him a couple times. You never know how to take that in training camp, right? This is not a competition. They're not tackling each other. Maybe in a game that play gets made, right? But in training camp, you're running. So you're off to the races with that play. So it seems to me this may be a year where we get a little bit of transcendence from Trent McDuffie. Last year, he stood up, he stood out. This year, he might transcend. Now, here's where we're ending it, baby. Charles Goldman on Twitter with a quote from Matt Nagy. Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy says he believes in wide receiver NIKKO REMIGIO because of his mental makeup. Mentions that he got hurt last year, battled through that adversity, and learned the system. And now he's going to get opportunities. So what is he going to do with it? Here's what I have to say about this. This preseason, Kadarius Toney has looked really good. Aside from getting smacked by George Karlaftis getting up and throwing the ball at him, which, by the way, someone had Adam Cloveman had retweeted it. Adam Cloveman, I think that's the name, and said, Kadarius Toney almost starts a fight at the Kansas City Chiefs training camp. No. Kadarius Toney got smacked, got mad, got up and threw the ball at a player, and nothing happened. No one responded. There were no punches thrown. This is a very good sign, in my opinion. Remember last year where all the tempers flared? Travis Kelce was fighting 13 and 14 people every day, etc. People were frustrated last season. Now, we're not in the 100-degree weather yet, so that might come. But this is a team that is focused. This is a team that is absolutely focused. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. Kadarius Toney has looked good this preseason. You can't take that away from him. The way he gets open, the way he's able to move, even at running back. There was a video today that came out of him taking a handoff and breaking around the side of an imaginary offensive line is just a quarterback and a running back on the field. But you look at it and you think, if I didn't know any better, guys, that's Jamal Charles, right? He's got that speed. He's got that movement ability. There was a video of him running I believe it was essentially a slant route. And he just posts this guy up and turns 90 degrees and starts running back towards the quarterback. And the corner is lost. It was lost so bad, I didn't even catch the number to jersey check it, right? He's looked good. Don't care. He's got problems catching the football. Now, he might be over it, but maybe he's not. You look at Justin Ross. Can't get it figured out for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, but the Chiefs don't put him on the field. At some point, you got to move past it. Justin Watson went down today. Maybe there's the reps are open there, right? All of these different wide receivers. Sky Moore can't figure it out. You put NIKKO REMIGIO on the field, here's the one thing I can tell you. Those balls are getting caught. Those passes will come down as completions. Is there going to be a whole lot of run after the catch? I don't know. I do think that he does sometimes play messy football and end up having to sell out for the catch, whereas he could stay on his feet if he just did things a little bit more quote-unquote appropriately. But if you've got a guy that has to play messy football, get open, and have zero run after the catch, as long as he's catching the ball 95% of the time, that is a great guy to have on the field. Imagine last year's offense with a guy that you could just screw it, flick the ball out there, and get a catch. Sky Moore wasn't doing it. Kadarius Toney wasn't doing it. Mecole Hardman wasn't doing it. Marquez Valdes-Scantling wasn't doing it. There was a time last year for this offense where they didn't need big plays. They needed completions. There will be a time in every season, a time in every game, a time in every drive where you just have to have a football caught. NIKKO REMIGIO does that. NIKKO REMIGIO gets open. NIKKO REMIGIO makes the catch. If you are telling me I can have that guy on the field or a number of these wide receivers that we have seen come through the Kansas City Chiefs, man, I'm taking NIKKO. Obviously, we haven't seen it at the NFL level during a Sunday. I got faith. What I have seen in camp, iron sharpens iron. The Kansas City Chiefs have very good cornerbacks. They did last year as well. NIKKO REMIGIO is getting open. That's all I have for this day 4 of the Kansas City Chiefs training camp. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hit the like button because it helps me out. It tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Kansas City Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There is a playlist on the channel for training camp, so if you have missed any of these videos, they are available still as well. And hey, I hope to have you back for the next one.